It was 5:30 a.m. on a chilly October morning in 2024 when my world turned upside down. I was half asleep, fumbling with my coffee maker in our cozy home in Willow Creek, a quiet suburb outside Seattle, when three men in police uniforms pounded on our front door. Their voices boomed, demanding my wife, Lauren, come with them immediately. Leading the pack was Tom Harper, our neighbor from across the street, sporting a badge like he'd suddenly become a cop. Community enforcement, he declared, as if that explained anything. I stood there, heart racing, thinking, since when does the Homeowners Association send goons to arrest anyone? But Lauren? She didn't flinch. She fixed them with a stare so icy it could have frozen the Puget Sound, said something sharp and low, and those three guys stopped dead in their tracks. Whatever she said flipped the script entirely. Have you ever wondered if the people next door are hiding something sinister? Let me tell you, this gets wild. 3 weeks earlier, I'd started noticing odd things about our neighbor, Margaret Ellis, the 55-year-old HOA president who usually spent her days fussing over everyone's lawn length with a ruler. One foggy Tuesday, I caught her at her kitchen window, peering through high-end binoculars aimed right at our house. Not the street, not the evergreens, but our front door, like she was running a covert operation. We'd lived in Willow Creek for 6 years, and Margaret was the type who'd slap you with a fine if your garbage bin lingered curbside past 7 a.m. But this? She was scribbling notes, snapping photos, building some kind of dossier. It felt like she was plotting to bust us for having the wrong shade of curtains. Yet something about her focus intense, almost predatory set my nerves on edge. She wasn't her usual perky self, waving like a pageant queen. Instead, she was laser-focused, like she was piecing together a puzzle with our lives as the stakes. Margaret's surveillance got creepier by the day. She'd linger in her yard, pruning already perfect azaleas or sweeping spotless sidewalks, her eyes tracking Lauren's every move as she left for her city planning job. Margaret installed new security cameras angled to catch our driveway, took evening strolls timed with our return from work, and made small talk that felt like an interrogation. Oh, Lauren's got those long city hall hours, doesn't she? So dedicated, she'd say, but her tone screamed data collection. Then the HOA citations started rolling in. Newer mailbox was non-compliant. Our lawn was a quarter-inch too tall. Our recycling bin was 2 feet out of place. Each notice came with a fine, each more absurd than the last. Lauren, though, wasn't fazed. She'd pore over those citations like a detective, pointing out procedural flaws and citing city ordinances with a precision that made me wonder. These violate basic regulatory standards, she'd say, her voice calm but sharp. I'd always known she was detail-oriented, but this felt like courtroom-level expertise, not something you pick up filing permits at City Hall. The weirdest part was how Margaret avoided any talk about Mrs. Evelyn Turner, the 70-year-old widow, 2 houses down. Evelyn's son, Michael, had died in a hit-and-run 4 years ago, a case that went cold despite her pleas for answers. Whenever Evelyn brought up Michael's death, Margaret would clam up, change the topic, or scurry off to some urgent HOA task. For someone who thrived on neighborhood gossip, her discomfort was glaring. Meanwhile, Margaret's safety initiatives were over-the-top speed bumps every 20 feet, blinding streetlights, crosswalks with enough signs to confuse a traffic engineer. She'd rammed these through the HOA, preaching about pedestrian safety, but it felt like she was overcompensating for something. Then there was Greg Larson, our unemployed neighbor across the street. At 50, Greg was drowning in debt after losing his warehouse job, and everyone knew his wife's worried comments about selling their house were no secret. Margaret, always in everyone's business, started having hushed meetings with Greg in her driveway. They'd clam up when anyone got close, but Greg's nervous energy and Margaret's folders screamed trouble. I started piecing things together when I overheard Margaret on her phone one foggy Monday night, her voice low but clear. Tomorrow morning, we frame them for drugs. By noon, corrupt planner Evans will be headlines. My stomach dropped. Lauren's maiden name was Avanched, kept it for work. Margaret was plotting to frame my wife, and she'd been stalking our routines to pick the perfect moment. That night, I couldn't sleep, my mind racing. Call the cops? Confront Margaret? Warn Lauren? Every option felt like walking into a trap. But at 5:45 a.m. the next day, the doorbell rang like a war drum, and there was Greg, badge gleaming, flanked by 2 guys in ill-fitting police uniforms, waving a search warrant for drug possession. I was panicking, but Lauren? She stepped forward, cool as steel, and asked to see the warrant. Her eyes scanned it like a hawk checking seals, signatures, case numbers. No judicial seal, no issuing court, she said, her voice steady but commanding. Where did this come from, and who authorized it? Greg's smug grin faded. He wasn't expecting a suburban mom to dissect his fake paperwork. The goons behind him shifted, clearly out of their depth. Then I saw Greg try to slip a small bag of white powder into our entryway. Lauren caught it instantly, her voice slicing through the air. What's in your hand? Greg froze, the bag hitting the ground as neighbors' phones lit up, recording everything. Evelyn was at her window, filming with a vengeance. Margaret came running over, feigning shock in her bathrobe, but her panic was obvious. Her plan was crumbling. Within minutes, real cops swarmed our street, sirens blaring. These weren't mall security types. They had real badges, real gear, and they deferred to Lauren like she was their boss. Greg cracked under pressure, spilling everything. Margaret paid him $6,000 to plant drugs and tip off the cops. Margaret's act fell apart as neighbors' videos captured her fake surprise and Greg's confession. Lauren's call to the police wasn't a 911 plea, it was a direct order. This is Evans. I need units now. Attempted evidence tampering by impersonators. The response was lightning fast, and I started wondering, who was my wife, really? As the cops cuffed Greg and his cronies, Evelyn marched up to Margaret, her voice shaking with fury. You know something about Michael's death. Stop lying. Same cover-ups, same framing innocent people. Margaret's face went white, her guilt laid bare. The next 48 hours were chaos. News vans flooded Willow Creek as the story of a corrupt HOA president broke. Margaret lawyered up, claiming she was a victim of Greg's schemes, but the evidence was crushing. Text messages detailing her orders to plant drugs, financial records of payments to Greg, and neighbors' videos of the botched frame-up. Lauren guided the police like a pro, pointing out evidence protocols and chain of custody rules. I confronted her that night, my voice trembling. City planners don't get SWAT teams on speed dial. Why do cops treat you like one of them? She sighed, walked to her office, and returned with a sheriff's badge and a service weapon. I'm Sheriff Laura Evans, she said, calm as ever. I kept it secret to protect you from my enemies. My world spun. 6 years of marriage, and my wife was the county sheriff, running major investigations while I thought she was pushing papers. Margaret's desperation escalated. I overheard her on another call, muttering about accidents that wouldn't raise suspicion. Same method as the Turner boy, she whispered. My blood ran cold. She was admitting to Michael's hit and run. That Thursday, I saw a pickup truck tailing Lauren's car, swerving to force her off the road. But Lauren? She handled it like a stunt driver, dodging the crash and chasing the truck through back streets, barking coordinates into a police radio I didn't know she had. Within minutes, a SWAT team cornered the driver, Margaret's hired hitman. Margaret watched from her yard, her face collapsing as her assassin was cuffed. Evelyn's phone call that night changed everything. Margaret's drunk, confessing everything, she said, her voice breaking. In a slurred, tearful rant, Margaret admitted to killing Michael 4 years ago. She'd been plastered at a neighborhood wine night, drove through a storm, and hit Michael as he walked home. I saw him lying there, bleeding but alive, she sobbed. I should have called for help, but I was scared of prison. I left him to die. She'd called 911 anonymously the next morning, pretending to find him, but it was too late. Her HOA's safety obsession speed bumps. Lights was her warped attempt to atone without confessing. Lauren arrested Margaret that night, charging her with vehicular manslaughter, hit and run, attempted murder, and conspiracy. Forensic teams found paint traces and Michael's DNA on Margaret's old SUV, despite her attempts to clean it. Cell tower data and traffic cams mapped her reckless drive that night. Greg's confessions exposed her network of bribed officials and silenced neighbors. Margaret's empire of lies collapsed as she faced life in prison. Evelyn became a victim's advocate, turning her grief into action, while Lauren's sheriff work earned her statewide praise. Our marriage survived, stronger through brutal honesty. Willow Creek rebuilt, with a transparent HOA and a memorial garden for Michael, blooming with his favorite lilies. Margaret, now in prison, teaches drunk driving classes, her remorse raw but real. Evelyn oversees her community service, a tense but healing dynamic. I pivoted my tech career to build tools for victim advocacy, while Lauren's community policing model became a national standard. Our neighborhood, once fractured, is now a beacon of trust, with property values soaring as families flock to a place that proved justice can prevail. What would you do if you discovered your spouse was hiding a life-altering secret? Could you forgive a neighbor who killed and covered it up for years? Should communities have more power to investigate their own leaders, or does that risk mob rule? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories that'll keep you up at night.